that, and thank you all for your business and for your loyalty over the years. Today we're going to talk about the products. On the far left here we have our Monterey gravity wall furnaces that operate without electricity. Then we have our top vent and direct vent forced air units, and then we have our forced air electric unit, which is 31,400 BTU. Down here we have our high efficiency direct vents, and then we have our room heaters that we're going to talk briefly about, but today it's getting in more into the detail of the products. This is our floor furnace, which comes in two sizes, 45 and 60,000 BTU, and then our traditional direct vents that are 14, 22, and 30,000 BTU. And we're going to wrap up a little bit later and talk about a brand new furnace and brand new technology that we're introducing on September the 1st. So let's go. We have Williams has been in business since 1916. We started in Southern California and have remained there. We started in LA and then moved out to the Inland Empire, as it's known. And we were purchased by Continental Materials Corporation in 1958. We also, in the 80s, we purchased Landco, which was a line of fan coils and air handlers that we've continued to market since that time, since the 80s. And I just wanted to mention here that we are rolling out June the 1st a line of fan coils and air handlers that are the most popular, most frequently ordered sizes and configurations. And we will add to that. These will be available for primarily our distribution customers when they have a project that they need replacements for, or if it's an entire project. If you don't see the size that you need, just shoot us an email and we'll give you a quote on the sizes that you may need. Last August, September, October, I should back up just a little bit. We had a change in management last June, and we have a new president, Mark Finney, who joined us last year in August. Mark's background is, he's a degreed engineer. He spends lots of time on the factory floor, really involved with the products, new product, new innovation. We're thrilled to have Mark, and as soon as COVID is lifted, we will reinstitute our full day training sessions. Actually, for those that are a distance, it'll be a day and a half of training and factory tours. It was very well received last fall. We had contractors, building and safety inspectors, utilities, distributors, reps. It's all technical, so it's not talking about price, but it's all technical. It was very well received, and when COVID hit, we decided that we would start the online training, which has also been very positively received. So we do fan coil and furnace training classes. If you're interested in taking any of those classes, visit our website and sign up for any of them that you're interested in. Even if you're not that fully involved with the fan coils, I think you may find it interesting just to attend the fan coil. We have We Do selection that talks, it takes you an hour through the We Do software, and then also through all of the features and benefits of different systems and fan coils that we manufacture. We're located in Southern California. This was on a clear day, obviously, because you see the mountains there with the snow cap on them. This portion of our factory is the old portion. This is what we call our fab building. And then we have our south building where we've set up a Comfort U, our training facility. This is our fan coil fabrication, and then this is a final assembly in our warehouse facility. What you're looking at here is just a shot of our factory. On any given day, you may find 6,000 to 8,000 furnaces on the shelf ready for shipping. That's why we can ship very quickly. This just shows a pallet of furnaces ready to go, and then these are fan coils. You can see they're packaged differently. We're on 16 acres, 400,000 square feet, and as I say, we've been in continuous manufacturing in Southern California since 1916, 104 years. That's quite a remarkable feat. Whoops, got a little bit carried away here. Let's go back. Okay, now what we're looking at is a CNC machine. In order to keep our costs down, we keep adding more and more automated equipment so that we can not have as many people working but still meet the needs of our growing business. This, what you're looking at here, is just one of the machines that can feed itself and operate 24/7, 365, punching out the parts that we need for our equipment. I should also mention that we're very vertically integrated. We bring in basically motors, valves, and switches. Everything else we manufacture ourselves. That's how we control our quality and our delivery, and how we can be responsive to you and to your customers' needs. We bring in rolls of steel, copper, aluminum, everything that's needed for the product, and out the door goes a finished product. This is pretty amazing because so many companies have gone offshore, gone to Mexico, and basically just taken their manufacturing away from their facilities. But Williams has remained loyal to being a full service, fully integrated manufacturing facility, and certainly in the predicament that everybody finds themselves in today, it's really been a godsend. Last year, Mark had the foresight to really stock up on motors and valves and controls. So we've been able to keep a 6-week lead on custom-made fan coils and air handlers, and we've been able to keep up with our furnace production and deliver on time. If our furnaces, we ship in 2 to 3 days max. Fan coils at 6 weeks, but on the new fan coils that we're introducing, hopefully we'll be putting those on the shelf as soon as we know what your needs are, so that those will ship in just a few days. We do we have all different types of welding that we do. We are a certified CSA test facility. So with our new furnace that we just developed, CSA actually can come to our labs and actually view the final product. But you see all these wires that are testing everything. We do all of our testing in our own CSA approved lab. Here you're looking at our factory floor where we've got fan coils down the line. These are the vertical stack like you see in a hotel room, where you just see a grill on the wall, and that would be one of these that's inside the wall. Williams is great, a great provider of high-rise construction. We do 100% tests on every burner that we manufacture, and we manufacture our own burners. What we're looking at here is the gas valve, the manifold, and then there's the burner control. And these are actually fired 3 times, and the lady runs a wand with a flame under it to make sure there are no leaks. I'm always like, oh my gosh, how does she do that? But she test fires each unit 3 times, and every unit, and our burners primarily are stainless steel. We have a few cast iron left. We're getting out of the cast iron burner business because there's so many foundries and it's just uncertain as far as how long they will be around. But we have primarily, we have stainless steel burners, and we're converting the few cast iron that we have to stainless steel. Mary Jo and her team have just done an incredible job. When I look at how far we've come since last June or July, it's absolutely phenomenal. What you're looking at here is a whole new branding of Williams. We have all new spec sheets, product brochures. We have a cross-reference. We have a brand new website. And if you find something that you think we should have on our website that we don't, please let us know. Just shoot us an email. We're working feverishly to put everything, all the resources that are needed. Nobody wants to have to wait and talk to someone. You want the resources on a website where you can go and get them. So we're working diligently to do that. And then we also have rebranded our fan coils and air handlers, but you can see it's a whole new look for Williams, and it's a new day. We're very excited. Let's get into the B2U calculator. How do you, maybe I should take a breath and see if anybody wants to say anything. I just keep rolling. Okay, hearing none. The way you calculate what is needed for a space that you want to heat with a wall furnace or a space heater, you take your and multiply those. Whoops. And then you get your number. It will give you the number. So here, and then you look at your degrees of what, if you're in a climate where, like Mary Jo is, where it gets to be 0, or maybe plus 20 or plus 40 in California. But then you get your total BTUs that you need, and then you find the unit that's going to best suit that, that's going to be best suited for that space. The next thing, before we get into talking about combustion, the next thing I should mention also is where this unit is going to be placed is critical. You've got top vent, so that's going to be on an interior wall generally, or it could be a floor furnace that you're going to vent up the side of the house, and we'll talk about that, the side of the house or the building, and we'll talk about that. Or it could be a room heater, but those are the top vented units. Then direct vent will be on an exterior wall, because it's exactly what it says. It directly vents to the exterior through a sidewall. So there are two types of products, and determining where you're going to install this unit is critical, where you have access to a gas line, and whether it's going to be on an interior wall or an exterior wall. Of course, if you're replacing an existing unit, we do have a cross-reference, and in our exploded views, we also list all the different products that we have made and different model numbers, so we can assist you with those. If you have one that you're taking out and you don't know what the new model number is, we can help you with that, but we also have those listed in the back of our exploded views. So what does it take to, in order for these units to operate, except for the electric unit? You need fuel, oxygen, and then you need a heat source or something to ignite the product, and then you have a perfect triangle for combustion. When we look at the products of combustion for natural and propane gas, perfect or complete combustion gives you carbon dioxide and water vapor. And we have a smiley face there because you want complete combustion. You have complete combustion when you have a nice, healthy blue flame. If you see yellow or orange, you've got something that is impinging that flame, whether it's dirt, debris, maybe the burner needs to be vacuumed or cleaned, or maybe something is disturbing the environment. I mean, if you want to have a perfect test, I mean, just take your gas range and turn it on. You'll see you should have a nice, healthy blue flame. If you boil something over, or you just take a cloth that has some dust on it and you shake it in the area of your gas range, you'll start to see orange and yellow particles, and the flame will not be burning properly. And so that's improper combustion. When you see yellow and orange, you're going to get carbon monoxide, toxic aldehydes, and excessive water vapor and soot. When you have any of those, you have improper combustion, and it's very unhealthy. So it's really critical for any appliance, whether it's a Williams appliance, which, by the way, even though we call these heaters furnaces or heaters, they're actually an appliance, and they come under the appliance standard. So that's why when all of the 80 and 90% efficiency rules were put in place and the standards were changed, our equipment did not have to meet those furnace standards, even though it is called a furnace. It really is an appliance. So anytime you have an appliance and it doesn't have a healthy blue flame, you've got improper combustion, you've got those dangerous particles coming into the space, and you do not want that to happen. You want to get that healthy blue flame, and if you're not, then find out why. It's usually dirt, debris. If it's on your gas range, it's because maybe something boiled over and it's clogging a certain area. So check those out. What are the facts of propane and natural gas? For propane gas, this specific gravity is 1.53 kilograms. Help me out, Hector. What's the M3? And for natural gas, it's 0.65 kilograms.
Cubic meters.
Thank you. The specific gravity of air is 1.205, and the same for natural. Propane requires 11 inches water column for the manifold pressure. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. It's really important if you get a troubleshooting call or someone says the unit isn't operating properly, you'll find out what type of fuel is it, and then measure the water column manifold pressure. That's critical. And then the ignition temperature for propane gas is about 920 degrees. So it's lower than the ignition for natural gas, which is about 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've already gone through these earlier, but these are the different types of equipment. And as I said, when you're going to be making an installation, if it's not a replacement, then you need to know, is this going to go on an interior wall or is it going to go on an exterior wall? And if for some reason you don't have a gas line available, remember the 31,400 BTU electric unit for those situations. So let's talk about the venting. We have top venting, which I talked about briefly, and this would be a room heater where you're coming out of the back of the room heater and you're going up the side of the whatever structure it is, whether it's a residence or it's a building of some kind. The chimney must be 2 feet higher than the portion of the roof, which is horizontally 10 foot away. So if this is 10 feet, it has to be 2 feet higher. But in this case, in order to reach the 10.2, you have to come up 3 feet. Because if you only came up 2 feet, you wouldn't have the 10-foot distance. So keep in mind that 10-foot, 2-foot rule, unless the horizontal line causes you to have to go higher than the 2 feet. But then, and this is going to be round B vent. Our room heaters go with 3, 4, or 5, depending on the size of the room heater. And also, if this were a floor furnace, you'd have the floor furnace under the floor with the grill inside the room, and then the venting would come out. Here again, it would be round vent. It would come out under the dwelling or under wherever the building is, and then it would go up the side, and it would still have that same rule, 10 feet horizontally away from the roof, and then whatever height that needs to be. That's just, then we also have a typical B vent, double wall, BW wall. And this is the top of a unit. It could be any of our top vent units. You have your header, your hold down plate, and then this is if you were going to go straight up. That's not going to happen very often. We're going to talk about what you do in those cases, but this would show if it's up, if it's just straight up. And we do have oval vent starter kits for situations where, such as this, and I think, and this is what's going to happen more likely than just having a straight up vent. Our competitors say that you should vent it straight up. That's not going to happen very often. It's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to go straight up in most cases, unless it was a home in Southern California that was built for a wall furnace, and then generally they go straight up. But most of our other installations require at least one offset. You can have 2 45s, and then you need to have it strapped if you have too long of a run. And then it needs to make sure, you need to make sure there's a collar and flashing to seal around the opening in the roof. The other thing that we caution people on is whenever you have, in the summer, a lot of times people put on a new roof or there's repairs made, and sometimes we'll get a call and they'll say, you know, this furnace worked fine last year and now it won't stay lit. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit more, but it could be that when they re-roofed or they made changes or modifications to the roof, that they did not vented properly or sealed, have a collar and the flashing that seals it completely, and that they don't have a proper vent termination. So these are the types of our top water top vent. We already showed you the diagram with the room heater and the floor furnace, and then the Monterey and the forced air top vents would vent just like I showed you. They would go through the roof, and they do use inside air for combustion. So the room air is actually coming in and allowing combustion. Remember, you need oxygen, fuel, and air, fuel, heat source. So this is what the two different types of vent look like. This is the round B vent that comes in 3, 4, and 5 diameter. 4 is the most common, and this is the BW double wall. And this is what the starter kit looks like. That's so that when you're inside the stud walls, you're using that BW vent, and then when you get up into the attic space, you can transition into the round double wall. So let's talk about troubleshooting. If you have a partial or a totally blocked vent system, you're not going, the unit is not going to operate properly. So if you have units that keep shutting down, and we'll talk about the limit switch in a few minutes, it's probably because there is something that has blocked, that partially or totally blocked the vent system, whether it's direct vent or top vent. The other thing, if it's a cold environment, direct heating equipment is basically requires the vent material to heat up. That's why we use double wall vent pipe, because it has to create a natural draft from the heat that is coming out of the unit to cause those products of combustion to exit the unit. So you want to create a draft, upward draft, by the heat the unit is generating. If the unit is being vented into a flue or a chimney and it is not lined, and it's in an old, being replaced where there was an old terracotta vent, you're going to more than likely have problems, because that terracotta vent and that chimney cannot heat up adequately for the products of combustion to get away from the unit. It also could be that the vent height is too short. We talked about that 2 feet above the roof. That would, if it's not high enough, or if you have trees that have overgrown through the summer, or something is obstructing that vent, the products of combustion from getting out of the vent, it will keep shutting the unit down. So if you have someone that says it worked just fine last year and now it won't, you know, with today, with most people having a camera on their phone, if they can just go out, snap a picture and send it to you, just take a picture of what the vent system looks like on the outside of the building. The other thing I want to mention here that we're really excited about is Williams has invested in technology that's called Live Lens. All of our customer service and technical people have access to what is called Live Lens. So a contractor or even a homeowner could be on a call with us or with you and us, and we can actually see what is happening at the location. So rather, you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and in most cases a picture is worth even more than 1,000 words, because we can be much more effective now with our troubleshooting when we have cameras that can show us exactly what's going on at the site. And so you know, in this case, if someone would take a picture of what it looks like on the outside of the structure, then we can more accurately diagnose if there's, you know, if the vent cap isn't correct, or if there's overhang, or if it appears that the vent stack is not high enough. Also, not having proper connections or undersized connections. Let's just take, someone had a room heater and it was a 50,000 BTU room heater, and they decided that they want to go with a larger, oh my goodness, they want to go with a larger one, and I'm gonna look at something real quick. Okay, they had a 50,000 BTU room heater and they want more heat in that space, so they're going to go to a 65,000 BTU heater. And they already had a 4-inch vent, and now they're putting a 65,000 BTU heater in there, and they don't want to have to change the vent, or they change part of the vent to be 5-inch and maybe coming off the unit, and then they crimp it down, or they crimp it down just because they want to make it work. And you're not going to, the products of combustion are designed for a 65,000 to require a 5-inch vent. So we find that, you know, a couple of times Live Lens has helped us, because we say, would you take a picture at the back where the connection of the vent is? And we see that they have crimped it so that they would force it into a smaller size. It's just not going to work. The products are designed to be vented with the size vent that's needed for the number of BTUs that are on that unit. The other thing is, if the vent cap is too restrictive, yeah, the vent cap needs to be able to be move. There is expansion and contraction, and also with all of our direct vent units, they come with all the vent material that's needed for the installation. Exhaust fans in the kitchen and bathroom can cause a negative atmospheric pressure, which can also cause the units not to stay on or not to stay lit. But you're going to have a pretty high-powered exhaust fan in the kitchen and the bathrooms, and maybe a fireplace, and all of them operating at the same time in a small space. You don't hear that as much as you hear the other things we have listed here. The other vent troubleshooting that you'll come across is downdraft from wind effects. So if you have high wind condition, you don't have enough rise on your vent system, you'll get a downdraft, and that causes spillage, and we're going to spend time talking about that. Also, if you have insufficient combustion air, let's say, oh my goodness, I've been on some sites where it's pretty amazing how much stuff some people will put all around their space heater or their wall furnace. It's pretty scary, actually, because nobody should have things surrounding their furnace, regardless of where it's installed. You need to have combustion air that is adequate around the equipment so that it can operate sufficiently. Okay, this is what our traditional direct vent looks like, but you have fresh air coming from the outside, creating and all of our units have a piezo igniter, a spark igniter. So you have the spark that creates the flame, you have combustion air to mix with the fuel, and you have heat generated in the heat exchanger that provides the heat out into the space. And then the products of combustion go through that concentric vent. It's a vent tube within a vent tube. And then the products of combustion come out through that same vent system. Since this is a drawing, I'm going to talk later about our bird guard and what we put a bird guard in every vent cap. And this picture is probably the best way for me to describe where the bird guard goes. It's going to go right in here. We're going to talk about that later, but this picture is the best depiction of where that bird guard goes. And this is the outside of the building. This would be the outside of the building, and this would be extended on the exterior of the building. This is what our direct vent would look like installed in the home. This is what our forced air direct vent would look like installed in a garage, and that's not my Ferrari. If it were, it would be in my living room. These units do not require inside air, as we just saw on the previous diagram. These units come with all the vent material that's needed for the unit to vent properly, and it vents directly to the outside. these are the heater components. We're going to get into each of these in just a few minutes, but this is what the heater components look like. This is a fan switch, and this is what the thermocouples look like. Limits, this looks like another fan switch. This is the limit switch. This our thermostat. Here's some more limit switches, thermocouple, thermal pile, the burner control, and then that's our intermittent ignition board. The thermocouple, you have dissimilar metals that that will create the spark that shows the insulation here, and then that's what creates the spark for ignition of our equipment, because it, as I said earlier, it doesn't require the room heater, the Monterey style gravities, the traditional gravities, the floor furnace, and I think I already said the room heaters. None of them require electricity. If the customer chooses to have a blower, which is an optional blower that's provided, if they choose to have that, and if there's no power, then the blower's not going to operate. But because of this thermocouple that creates the spark for ignition, that these units will work without electricity. This is what the thermal pile looks like, and how it has a stainless steel jacket on it, and then this is where it connects to the pilot generator. This is what our fan switch looks like. High limit switch. And this is what our vent limit safety switch looks like. We want to spend a few minutes here talking about this red dot on our vent limit safety switches, which are required on, and they were mandated in 1989 by Department of Energy. Any equipment had to have a vent limit safety switch. The products of combustion started to spill into the space, like I showed you on the one diagram, then that's why some people call it a spill switch, high limit switch. There's all different names for it, but that little switch has to shut the unit down if products of combustion start spilling through the vent system back out into the space. So on a direct vent, you have a concentric sealed vent, and that won't operate if it's not perfectly sealed and it doesn't have perfectly matched vent material. The unit won't operate. It's designed not to operate unless it's sealed combustion. So on all top vent equipment, there has to be a limit switch or a spill switch. When we first designed our units with the limit switch, we did not have resettable. Oh my goodness. We had contractors changing out parts, because in those days, in '89, there was a lot of terracotta vent. There were a lot of units that were vented into flues and chimneys without liners, and there was a lot of nuisance outages. So we quickly determined that we needed to have a resettable switch that would basically tell you and or the contractor, whoever was working on it, that if it trips that switch, the problem is not the furnace. If the spill switch keeps tripping, the homeowner can hit the switch and get the unit to hit the piezo igniter, get it back into service. It runs for a short time and then it trips again. There is something that is compromised from the top of that unit to the top of the vent termination that needs to be addressed, because it's just going, and let's just say it's intermittent. Well, remember I talked about those trees overhanging? A lot of times you want to say, well, what kind of weather are you having today? Is there rain? Is there heavy dew? Is there moisture, humidity in the air? Because if they're having nuisance outages and those are the conditions, those trees, the leaves are covered with water, it's dripping, they're heavy, and it's restricting the products of combustion from getting out of that vent system. So don't go changing parts or recommending that parts be changed when a limit switch keeps tripping. because more than likely it's something in that vent termination and in the vent system itself. This is what the thermostat looks like. We stopped including the thermostat with our units because we found a lot of people weren't using them. We still offer them, but this is what the thermostat looks like. A lot of people want a more sophisticated thermostat, and we're delivering on sophisticated thermostat with our new furnace that we're going to be sharing with you. This is what the burner control looks like on our top vent Monterey style. This is your gas valve. This is your manifold, and that's your stainless steel burner, and this is your pilot generator. And then this is your tag for French, English, and Spanish on your burner control. Also, I should mention here, every burner control has an actual burner number. It's hard to see it right there. It's impossible to see it for me. And then this is your model number, and this is your serial number. That's on every burner, but it's also several other places. But if someone can't find the number, it's on the burner control. And it's also on the rating plate that's on the unit. Let's talk about that limit switch. Here it is mounted on the furnace. You see the little red dot there. Our Monterey, if any of you, the Monterey was our first product, our original product. We've been making that since the mid-40s. And before that, we made radiators from 16 to 43. But we also put Cozy and Empire into the business. The Monterey type, the gravity wall furnace, as we make and they make, years ago, we had an open face draft hood right here, a big hole. So the heat came off the heat exchanger, went into that open face draft hood, and then the products of combustion went through the draft hood and out through the venting. When we started having nuisance outages with our Monterey, we decided to patent the draft hood. That's what this is. It's a patented draft hood, and this is the neck of it. We have side relief openings. If you remember on our Monterey wall furnace, there's little grills. There's like a little grill in this area. So you have dilution of the heat by 50% on each side, so you don't have as much heat hitting that vent limit switch, which makes it operate a lot more efficiently. These are just the wires that go down that go to your thermostat to tell the unit when to turn off and turn on. Then we have our intermittent pilot module. This is what would be on our intermittent ignition or spark igniter. This has no standing pilot, which is what our new furnace coming out is, no standing pilot, because nobody wants the energy being consumed for it to run the standing pilot all year. So this is a spark igniter or intermittent ignition module. And then we've just added, I didn't even know that we didn't have our codes for troubleshooting the green and the yellow flash codes. So we do have that now on our website. And you'll also, Mary Jo, will provide this presentation to you for you to be able to share with your customers and with other people in within your companies. This is what the Monterey, the room furnace, and the floor furnace mechanical components look like. That's a close-up of the vent limit safety switch, the thermostat, pilot generator, the gas valve, and the piezo igniter. And like I said, everything comes with the piezo igniter to make it easier to light, so that it's just like your gas grill. You don't have to have a match or a lighter. These are the components of the direct vent units and the forced air mechanical components. This is what our direct vent burner assemblies look like, the cast iron burner assembly. And here, this shows a good picture of the chain and the lighting instructions. We have lighting instructions with every unit, and they should always go to the very bottom of the unit. There's a long chain on that, and the reason for the length of the chain is determined by CSA. That's not something Williams has any control over. The composition of this tag, the wording of the tag, and the length of the chain is all determined by CSA, and that's a requirement for every unit to pass testing. But we've seen situations where people will stick them in above the burner, get really creative where they're going to store that tag, but that tag needs to be on the lowest portion of the equipment. Here you're looking at the gas valve, the manifold, and then this is the burner. This is where this would be the sealed combustion, and there's a peephole here, and there's a screw, a wing nut here, and that the contractor can actually open and look in if he wants to make sure it's burning. But there are some contractors that really like using their power screwdriver, and they take this whole plate off because they want to get in there and see. And then there's a gasket material that goes all around that. More than likely, if you take this apart, you're going to compromise that gasket, especially if the unit's been used for a while, and then the contractor decide he wants a closer look and he takes those screws out. Really, that is not necessary. The big thing to look for if someone's having an issue is to check that vent system, check that it's secured properly and aligned properly, because the only thing that really needs to be looked at is this peephole if you want to look in to see if the unit's burning. And of course, there's your piezo igniter that you can use to get the unit into service. So this is just a close-up. This is the larger one, and this is the smaller one, how it lights. But on the direct vents troubleshooting, the big thing is the gaskets need to be replaced if this plate has been removed, and if that peephole has been removed frequently. There you can see the white gasket material there, and you can actually see a little bit of it here, but those gaskets have to be in perfect condition to get a complete seal so that those units can operate properly. This is what the forced air burners look like. Here again, this would be the direct vent, because that has to be sealed also. And then this is the room heater burners. We have the smaller size because they come in from 20,000 to 65,000 BTU, but pretty simple design. Most of our burner controls have very similar designs. Here again, you can see the lighting instructions and the chain that should be at the very bottom of the unit. This is what happens when they're not stored at the very bottom of the unit. We don't want that to happen, and nobody wants that to happen. But anyway, it's really important that that chain be at the very lowest portion. As I already mentioned before, we do 100% tests on every burner. You can see all the burners lined up there on the assembly line, waiting to be tested. So let me see how I'm doing on time. I better talk fast. This is what a Monterey installation looks like. You've got to make sure you have all your heights correct. And when the unit is installed in the studs, they're usually installed in the stud space, 16-inch stud space on center, and the legs are going to be attached. It slides in, goes up through the top of the header, and then it gets nailed into the 2x4s. And that you do not want the legs to be bent or bowed. Expansion noises from Monterey is generally the way it's been installed. Not just the Monterey, but others, but we'll get into that. But it's really important to pay attention to all the dimensions and the heights, because if the header is lowered, then you're going to force that unit into it. The actual neck of that heat exchanger, you're going to force that into that header, and then when that unit tries to expand and contract, it can't. It's critical that the header be exactly where it is supposed to be, which, Hector, help me out here, 62¼ inches is where the exact height for the header.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Okay, with the direct vent, the traditional direct vents, we actually provide a template. It is critical to the operation of the unit that the template be used so that the opening for the vent is going to be centered and accurate. It's really important because if that isn't centered and accurate, then when you have legs, they're really not legs, they're just strips that make sure that the height of the unit is correct. But when you position the unit on the inside, if that opening isn't the correct height and the unit comes up and it can't perfectly align with the vent tubes on the outside, when that unit starts to heat up, you're going to have expansion and contraction noises. Excuse me, because the components inside of the unit need to be able to move. It's amazing how far the components inside of a wall furnace move when they heat up and cool down. But it's all strategically all the parts are strategically aligned so that if it's installed properly, it allows the movement of the unit to expand and contract for a very quiet operation. Also, when contractors are making installations, it's really important when they fasten the unit to the wall that they not go through two thicknesses of metal. There's in the installation instructions, it calls out exactly how the unit should be mounted. If they're not mounted properly and they just run screws, extra screws through, or nails, mostly it's screws because they have power screwdrivers. But if they run it through two thicknesses of metal and then the unit starts to heat up, those metals try to expand and contract and they can't. And you'll have that binding and then it's gonna pop. So it makes a loud noise. It can sound like a shotgun. It's unbelievable when metal is heating up and it wants to expand and you're trying to restrict it. I mentioned briefly about the floor furnace. This is the floor inside the structure. It just has a grill. And then you've got the vent coming out from the draft diverter and up the side of the structure and then terminating at the height that it needs to. This is what the wiring diagrams look like, where the thermostat would attach and the limit switch. This is what our product identification looks like. You have the model number, the first 2 weeks of the first two digits of the serial number tell you the week. So this 3509622A was manufactured the 21st week of the year 2020, and it was unit number 2574. This is what the label looks like on the exterior of the building, on the exterior of the carton. This is actually in the burner control area. This is on the outside of the box, French, English, and Spanish. And then this is also on the outside of the box. There's the burner control I mentioned to you earlier. It was very difficult to read. This part of this label is on the carton, but when the contractor, if he wants to take this off and put it on the inside of the installation instructions, then the homeowner or another contractor that comes along would have all the information without having to open the access store to get the information. Each of these, this is when it goes in. This is for Williams production copy. This is the warehouse, this is shipping, this is the distributor's copy, and then this is the dealer's copy. And each one has all the critical data that you need, and it's all barcoded for those that are using RF Gen. Okay, now we're coming to the fun stuff. This is the new baby. We're calling it AC2030. It's an exact casing of the existing units. It fits in exactly the same place. So it has the same fit and form. It does not have the same function. It looks totally different. Remember that just a heat exchanger. That doesn't have blowers. It doesn't have controls. It's totally different. It has superior comfort and efficiency. Our current model is 70% AFUE. This new baby is 82% AFUE. Ultra low NOx. Currently, the 14 nanojoules are what is the highest that you can have if you want to meet the Air Resources Board emission standard. But we say this is ours is 10. We've had it as low as 2. It really depends on where it's installed. But it has dynamic response. We're calling it the AC 2030 because it goes from 20,000 to 30,000 BTU based on the needs of the environment. So when you set this thermostat or the temperature that you want, the unit will read what's needed and it will modulate or actually change the mixture of fuel and air, and I'm going to show you a close-up of that in a minute, to deliver what's needed for the space. I mentioned we do not have any, there's no standing pilot, so it eliminates seasonal relighting, saves energy, and eliminates methane emissions. Very easy to install. It installs with the same vent material right in the same space. It does have fans that operate constantly to deliver comfort and air circulation. It has a programmable thermostat for savings and comfort. So let's take a close look. This is what it looks like. You have the gas coming from the main proportional gas valve. You have a combustion fan, and this is where the magic occurs. This is sealed combustion, so this could also be used in a garage. This mixing chamber is a perfect, this controller is constantly reading the air and fuel mixture to have perfect burn. You have a burner plate, and then the combustion chamber, hot surface igniter, and then we have 5 twisted tubes that make up the heat exchanger, not just one heat exchanger like we have currently on our other units, but this has 5 twisted tubes, and that's what delivers the heat out into the space. You can see the draft hood is very similar in design to what we currently have, and then it has the spill switch. We're very excited about this new technology. There's a close-up of what it looks like, and we're so excited that it will be available. Also, for those of you that are not in California, which a lot of you are not, this will be another alternative to our forced air unit. We've never had anything that would be 82% efficient, meeting all these other standards, and we're really hopeful that we can change the world of direct heating equipment with this new technology, not just this unit, but future units to come. Thank you all for your attention, your participation. I'd be glad to answer questions. We do have a troubleshooting guide that we've added on our website. Whoops. So we have troubleshooting, and we have a troubleshooting guide on our website. What questions can I answer? And